Hello, everyone. My name is Ty Kiesel. I am the Director of Content at NAV. I'm really glad to be here with my friend and co-presenter. And Jerry, I can't hear you.
Ty, I'm glad to be here. Jerry Detweiler, Education Director for NAV.
And we're going to talk about preparing for your business loan application. In addition to, the documents you might need, we're also going to talk about some of the things that you should do to get yourself in the right mindset to apply for a loan. We're really excited to be here today, and let's get started. So, how do you know when you're ready to apply? Basically, you need to have a specific reason for borrowing. In fact, if you're looking for a small business loan, the first question I think you should ask is, what am I borrowing for? What is my loan purpose? Because that's going to help you answer a lot of other questions like, how much should I borrow? What kind of interest rate can I afford? What type of term makes sense? We live in a world today that is convinced that capital is the answer to every small business challenge, and that's not exactly true. I think you need to have a specific reason to borrow, and I think if you've got that reason, then it makes sense to start the process. You also need to know how much you need to have to pay back borrowed funds. There's a number of calculators on the nav.com website. You should check those out because not every small business financing option calculates um, the cost of your loan the same, and they don't all quote you the interest rate in APR. So you kind of need to compare apples to oranges sometimes, and we've got some calculators that will help you do that. Now, the next thing is, what type of financing are you looking for? There's a resource that is part of this program. It's our Where's the Money uh, handout. Please take a look at that. Basically, I believe, and we've been doing this for a long time, I think there are more options available today for small business owners looking for money than ever before. However, I don't think you need to be an expert in financing to be able to find the right option for you, but you do need to kind of understand a little bit about what's available, what makes sense for your business, and what type of financing will meet your business needs.
Yeah, and Ty, can I add something to this before we go to the next slide? When you
Sure.
talk about the specific goal or use of the funds, the one thing I would caution though is sometimes business owners wait till they really need the money and then they start looking and then they end up in financing that isn't perhaps the best financing for them. So I do really want business owners to think about looking at financing before they're really in a situation where they need the money yesterday. And one option to help prevent that kind of scenario is a line of credit so that you do have some funds that are available for emergencies or opportunities that come up. You may be able to acquire, for example, some equipment from some businesses that are closing down, and you can get a really good deal on the equipment. NAV's co-founder Levi King did that, where he drove across the country to get a boom truck to use in his sign manufacturing business because it was such a great price. So having something, starting this process before you're really desperate can be very beneficial.
That is really good advice, Jerry. Super important advice. I like to look at it from a strategic borrowing perspective. I worked in a business that wasn't, one of my small businesses was not a seasonal business, but business did ebb and flow quite a bit throughout the course of 12 months. There were fat times, and then there were times when business wasn't as good. And I'm going to guess that most of you have businesses that are either seasonal or do that same thing. And you can anticipate those times when you might need extra funds, and you can prepare to borrow for, to bridge one slower season to a busier season and take a more strategic approach. So that's great advice from Jerry Don't wait until you're hard pressed for money. A line of credit is a good option, and looking strategically at the year and determining when you might need extra capital is also a good idea.
If you are someone who has not borrowed in the small business capacity before, you may not be familiar with the main factors that lenders are looking for. Now, we're not going to focus heavily on qualifications in this presentation. We're going to instead really try to help you line up that documentation so you can shop for financing and feel very confident. But I do want a quick touch on these because these are things that you will want to check or gather before you start the application process. So your credit history. Most small business lenders will prefer to check a business owner's personal credit if they can. Now, some types of financing are not very credit focused. For example, invoice factoring. You have invoices and you need to get money from those invoices more quickly. They're really interested in the company that owes the invoice, which is your client, versus you as the business owner, because that's who ultimately needs to pay that money that they're going to collect on. So not everything requires good personal credit, but I would suggest that you check your personal credit on a regular basis. So at least you have an idea of where you stand. And if you go to nav.com/free-scores, we've written an article with 138 places you can check your credit score for free. Now, you don't need to check with 138 places, but I would recommend that you're checking and monitoring your personal credit with all three of the major consumer credit reporting agencies: Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. So you see if something happens. I was recently a victim of identity theft. I can tell you I was really glad I was monitoring my credit, because that's how I caught it, and that's how I was able to stop it before they did too much damage. And then your business credit, NAV, it's the only place you can check your business credit reports and monitor them for free from the three major bureaus: Equifax, Dun & Bradstreet, and Experian. So if you are not already monitoring your business credit, please do, because that may be a factor in certain types of financing. And you certainly wouldn't want something that's on your business credit to disqualify you from getting financing and not know why. With business credit, they don't have to tell you that they checked your business credit. So it's possible they could see something on there that alarms them, a tax lien, maybe it doesn't even belong to you. Collection accounts, again, could belong to another business, and that could get you disqualified. So check that. And then, Ty, do you want to touch on revenues?
Yes, revenue is really important because basically, when a lender is looking at your credit profile, they want the answer to three very important questions. One, can you repay a loan? And revenue ties into that. If you don't have the revenue to make the periodic payments, you're probably not going to qualify. The next question is, will you repay a loan? And that's why they look at your credit history, and they dive into other information they have about your business. They're trying to see and make a decision about what you will do in the future based upon what you've done in the past. And the third question is, will you make those payments throughout the course of the loan? Will you make each and every periodic payment during the term? And revenue is a critical component of that. If you don't have enough revenue to make periodic payments, then you need to rethink whether or not you should apply for a loan.
Absolutely. And most lenders are going to verify this with business bank statements, which we'll talk about in more detail in just a moment. And then the third is business facts. So they're going to want to look at how long your business has been around. And that's what is the start date. You should have a consistent date, whether it was the date you incorporated your business, formed your LLC, or maybe the date you got your employer identification number from the IRS, your EIN. If that came earlier, that might be the date for the formation of your business. If you do have a corporate structure, they might want to see your articles of incorporation. They're basically going to try to verify that the business is what the owner says it is. They are going to be looking at who owns the business. So if, for example, you have multiple owners, they might need the others to sign off, or the others, in the case of an SBA loan, may have to be part of the application process. So they're going to look at all that detail. So we'll give you some more checklists coming up. And my feeling is if you gather this information over, let's say over the course of the next week, and you start a file, whether it's a digital, Google Drive folder, or whether it's a physical file. If you have all this information in one place, then when you start the application process, you're going to feel a lot more confident and a lot less worried about not having the information you need to qualify.
I think that's wonderful advice, especially if you're looking strategically at when you'll need money and how much you'll need. Having everything at your fingertips is just a good idea. Now, the documents that you're going to need will vary depending upon the lender that you're going to. For example, traditional lenders like banks and credit union, a bank or a credit union are going to require more documentation and than an online lender, for example. However, these items are, in a nutshell, the things that I would consider the very bare minimum. You're going to need 6 months of your most recent bank statements and at least a month-to-date activity report if you're 10 days into the new month. And the lender is going to use this information to confirm that you have the ability to make periodic payments. Another thing you should consider here is if the lender asks to digitally connect to your bank account to verify this information, by all means, allow them to do it. It's safe and for you, and it does a couple of things for the banker. It's going to let the lender validate that the information you're giving them is correct, of course, but it also is going to streamline the process for you, making it much quicker that for you to get the financing that you need. This is a standard practice with a lot of lenders today. Don't be afraid of it. It's really important that you do this if they ask you to, because it's going to make the loan process much easier for you. You're going to need to prove that the business is in fact yours. If you have multiple partners, for instance, and you do not have the majority ownership of the business, but you have the authority of the others to transact and borrow in the name of the business, you're going to need some documentation that states that so that you can sign for the loan. But proof of ownership is really important. You're going to need your identification. They're going to need a business voided check. Most lenders today, even traditional lenders, are doing direct debits from your business bank account in a daily, weekly, or monthly form. So they'll need a business voided check. And also, that validates that you have a business checking account as well, because there are a lot of lenders in the space that won't even talk to you if you don't have a business checking account, because they want to work with businesses. They're not looking to work with individuals. Bank verification for your business bank account. And if you're going through a traditional lender, you're going to need some kind of specified collateral. If you're going with many online lenders, they do not require specific collateral, but it will use a UCC lien on your general business assets to secure the loan. But at the very minimum, these are the documents that you might need. If you're going to the bank or the SBA, for example, you will probably need all the resumes of the principals involved in managing the company. You'll need a business plan. There's other things that may be required, but if you have this information available to you, then that's a really good idea. What's more, you need to understand what is in this information. A lot of the time you're going to need to show some financial statements and etc. And I once talked with a lender who said, if I can tell more about the business by looking at their financial reports than the business owner knows, I'm not going to give them a loan. And so you need to make sure that when you're going through your business bank statements, that you understand what they're saying and that you understand what that activity report is giving you. So, Jerry, do you have anything you want to add to this?
Yeah, I'd like to add two things. So on the business voided check, we saw with PPP, some business owners had a business bank account, but they just never had ordered any checks. So they had no physical checks. And many banks will let you print off a voided check, But if you don't have a voided check, a physical check that you can write the word void on and scan or send a picture of, then talk to your bank. Do that now so that you can find out what the process is for getting that. Do you need to order checks, or do they have a process to give you allow you to get a voided check online? So that's really important. The other thing is if your lender asks you for documentation, get it to them. I was at a conference where I was in a booth next to a banker, and he was trying to help a client close a loan for over $1 million. The bank wanted to make this loan for the small business client, but the client had not provided some key documentation. And the banker went back to his communication with this business owner and read off to him, hey, I sent this request to you by email on this date, and this date. And the first date was 6 months prior. The business owner was freaking out because it looked like the loan wasn't going to close. He needed that money. And the banker was saying, hey, I've asked you for this. This is not a surprise. So I understand you when you start this process, you think, yeah, that's easy. But the sometimes the stress of running a business, the stress of worrying about getting that money, whatever happens that day or week or month in your business may get you distracted from fulfilling these requests, and that could sink your loan. So just pay attention to what they're asking and get it to them as quickly as possible. And if you have any problems, let them know why.
That's incredible advice, Jerry, because sometimes the reason it takes weeks or months to get a loan approval is because you're dragging your feet on getting the information that the lender needs. So if the lender asks for something that you don't immediately have, make that a priority to get it to them, because in today's world of financing, you can actually get a loan in a few days rather than the weeks that it used to take. And a lot of it depends upon how quickly you're able to get the information and the data to the loan officer. So that's great advice, Jerry.
Yeah. So what if you can't get financing? You don't have a business bank account. This lender requires it. You aren't incorporated, and this particular lender doesn't lend to sole proprietors, for example. Then you want to look at your options and see what else might be available to you while you fill the gaps. So if you have a NAV account and it is free to set one up, then you can look in your profile and see what financing options may be available. And there may be other options that don't require the hurdle you're facing. So for example, a business credit card. Many business owners can qualify for a business credit card, even for a brand new business, as long as they have enough income from all sources, not just the business, and a strong enough personal credit score. And then that credit card could in turn provide some financing while they build up their other qualifications. Merchant cash advance is another example. It's a more expensive type of financing, absolutely, but it can be available to business owners who have bad credit. And so in that sense, it is often popular with business owners who have an immediate pressing need and can't qualify because of their credit. So look at your NAV account for your financing matches and consider starting smaller if necessary. You may not get all the money that you need right away, but perhaps you can get some of the money you need to get to the next step, so then you can continue to get to the next step. And Ty and I have recorded a series of webinars about financing options. So if you find this confusing, you're not alone. There's a lot of different financing options out there, a lot of unfamiliar terminology, but we really strive to make it as simple and easy for you to understand your options. And you can always reach out to NAV's credit and lending team. They'll be happy to talk to you about your individual options and give you some suggestions if you're not quite ready for financing on what's next in terms of getting there.
Several years ago, I was speaking with a small business owner. He reached out to me because of an article that I had published, and he said, "I can't get the money that I need to get my business off the ground." And he was an idea stage startup. He had gone to the local SBDC and they had helped him put together a marketing plan, but he couldn't get the capital to initiate the marketing plan. And so I started asking him questions. The first question I asked him, as you might guess, is, what are you borrowing for? He couldn't tell me. He just knew he needed some money to get started. I asked him, how much money can I get? And he said, well, or how much money do you need? He says, how much money can I get? And I said, well, what are your revenues? What's your cash flow look like? And he said, I don't have any revenues. Well, obviously he wasn't about to get the loan. And I have often felt like even a failed loan application is an opportunity to learn what the gaps are in your profile, so that you can fill those gaps, so that the next time you'll be a little bit better prepared. And so this is great advice that Jerry has just shared. So before we wrap up, how do you get started? How do you take those first steps to prepare for a loan? And the first thing is review your business financing profile. You can do that with a free NAV account, and I encourage you to go to nav.com and get a free account. It costs you nothing, and it will give you all of the information that you need to know so that you can start preparing to finance. Jerry, do you want to take the next bullet?
Yeah, and let me just mention, for those of you who are not familiar with NAV, what we are is a online lending marketplace, and our goal is to make small business financing simple. So we're not a lender. What we do is we use our secure platform, gather your information, your qualifications, and then we show you offers based on those qualifications. So we aren't going to sell your information to lenders so you can be bombarded with calls from a bunch of lenders. Instead, we're going to match you and show that to you in your NAV account. And it is a safe and secure platform with many different lending options available. In addition, as I just mentioned, you can always schedule a call with one of our credit and lending specialists, and they will be happy, no pressure, to go through your options and see what's available to you now. And if you're having trouble finding financing, explain to you, what your next step might be and what some of the obstacles you might need to overcome so that you can get to that next step. And then as you get financing, our goal at NAV is to help you continually improve your qualifications so that you can hopefully get better and better financing in the future and continue matching you to those financing options. So you'll find this in your NAV account on the financing tab, and then you'll also see some more details. One tip is when you see a match in your Match Factory, you'll see a little details button there. Click on that, because that's going to tell you a little bit more about why NAV matched you to that financing. But there may be information we don't have. For example, if you haven't filled out your full profile, which we want you to do, but let's say you haven't added your revenues and we don't know that, then there may be minimum revenues for that lender. And we're saying we think you're a match, but we'd have to verify your revenues to do that. So another tip in that account to get better matches is to link your bank account. This is through a secure technology. We can't take money out of your bank when you do that, bank account when you do that. All it does is provide a read-only access, similar to, if you use Mint or Personal Capital or something like that on the personal side to manage your budget. It's a similar technology, and that helps us understand your business revenues, which is one of those factors that we talked about way back in the beginning of this presentation. So then you can continually, refine those matches as you go along.
And, depending upon your qualifications, you're going to be matched with different types of lenders that will charge different interest rates, etc. And you can always talk to somebody at NAV and ask the question, why am I being matched to this particular type of financing? And they will gladly explain to you the reason why. And it could very well be, like Jerry has suggested, that we're missing some information, and that might improve the type of financing that you get matched for. And as your business grows and your revenues increase and your credit profile gets stronger, the options that are available to you will increase as well. I mean, a great personal credit score and business credit profile might not be a guarantee that you're going to get the financing that you're looking for, but it's definitely a guarantee that you're going to have more options available to you. So, that's the best way to get started. And it's been a real pleasure speaking with you today. I hope that this information has been valuable to you, and that it helps you anytime that you need you need to look into financing. Please give us a call. We would be happy to answer any questions that you might have. All of our lending specialists are skilled and able to do that. And good luck. Hope you are able to find the financing that you need, and that we've helped you get started and prepared for your first loan application.